recorded a video in like 4 months, so. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, my name is Maija, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already read the title, today I'm going to be doing a 2022 reading wrap up, which is basically every single book I've read from January to now, December 23rd. I am going by my Goodreads. Yeah, I've read 39 books so far, and my goal was to read 40, but I'm currently reading 2 books right now, and I have like 8 days to finish them. So by the time the year ends, I should be at 40 or 41 books. So yeah, I'm going off everything here. Also, some of these books I have on my bookshelf. I think more than half of them are on my bookshelf, but then some of them I also read on my phone. But without further ado, let's get on to the video. Okay, so I read 8 books in January, which was the most books I read in a month this year. After January, everything just went like downhill, and I did not read that many books again. So January was definitely my prime time. 4 of them I have in like physical copy, and then the other 4 I read on my phone. So I'm just gonna start from the beginning. So the first book I read this year was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I rated this a 4 out of 5 star. I do think it was a little bit overhyped, but it was still a really good story, really good plot. Loved it. I might read it again. I just wasn't a huge fan of the really long chapters. The chapters were so long for no reason, and also it was in third person's point of view, so I wasn't really vibing with that. But yeah, this was 4 out of 5 star. First book I read this year, really good book. So the second book we read this year was probably my least favorite book of all time. I hate that book so much, and it is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Literally, I've read 12 of her books, and that was definitely the worst one. I hate that book so much. I literally gave it a 3 star. It was so bad. I did not like it. I know a lot of people like that book, but I didn't. It was horrible. So second book I read this year was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. The fourth book I read this year was The Score by O. Kennedy, and that is the 3rd book in the Off-Campus series. Oh, I rated that one a 5 out of 5 star. That one is about Allie and Dean. I think that was actually a really good book. I think I'll probably do The Deal and then The Score, because it was really, really good. And that was also the last book I read of the Off-Campus series, because I don't really want to read the pregnancy trope, which is the 4th book, and then the last book, the 5th one, The Legacy. I heard that one's really, really bad, so I kind of don't want to read either one of those. But yeah, The Score, it was actually a really, really good book. It was so fun. I got done with it in like a couple of days, I think. But yeah, 5 star, 4th book I read this year. Okay, so the 5th book I read this year was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. One of my top books of the year. This was one of the best books I've ever read in my life. I will say the middle-ish was boring because nothing was happening. The book kept me guessing till the very end. I thought I guessed it. I didn't. I finished it. I literally had to sit in my room for like 10 minutes and like process what happened, because the plot twist was like literally insane. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. The plot twist was like crazy. I rated this one a 4 out of 5 star. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because like I said, the middle was pretty boring because nothing was happening. But yeah, this book was literally perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. I loved it so much. 4 stars. If I read it again, I would probably give it a 5. But yeah, 4 stars for the 5th book I read this year, which was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. So book number 6, we have November 9th by Colleen Hoover. I rated this one a 4 out of 5 star, which I honestly think it's probably like a 3.75. Literally everything up to like right here was perfect. But when you find out like the plot twist, like I hated it. I hated the ending. It was poorly accomplished. I did not like it. I literally hated it, which is why this book went from like a 5 star maybe to like a 3.75. The ending sucked so bad. I hated it. The main character should not have ended up with who she ended up with. The person she did end up with, I hate him with every fiber of my being. He sucks. And then the 8th book I read this year was the first book of the Shadow Me series, which I rated a 3 star because, you know, in all fantasy books you have to do the world building and all that stuff, and that's basically what this book was, just introducing us to all the characters, so nothing was really happening, which is why I gave it a 3 star. But let me just say that every single book after this one, I gave 5 stars. They're all so good. I would definitely read this series again. If you can get past the first book, you're good. Like I said, the first book, it's pretty boring because nothing's happening, there's no action, but the rest of the series, perfect. Literally perfection. So now we have the books I read in February, and there are only 3. My apologies to myself. I feel like it should have been more, but you know, it wasn't. So the 9th book I read this year was The Chase by Kennedy. This is, I think, either the 1st or 2nd book in the Briar U series, which is like a spin-off series of the Off-Campus series. That one follows Summer. That's who it was. Summer was the main character. Summer and Fitzy were the main characters in The Chase by Kennedy. I gave that one a 4-star. I don't remember why. I do not remember the plot. I remember this was in February, which was like 8 months ago. Nope, that was not. It was 10 months ago, actually. Yeah, I don't remember what it was about, but it was obviously really good if I gave it a 4-star. It was the 1st book of the Briar series, and I think it really did set the tone for the rest of the books in the series. I've only read 2 of them, but it set the tone for the 2nd book in the series, which was the 10th book I read this year, and it is The Risk by Kennedy. And it is book 2 of the Briar U series. I originally read it on my phone, but one of my friends got me the actual physical copy for Christmas, so that was really, really thoughtful of them. I gave this one a 4-star also. I do think this one was particularly better than The Chase. I think because I like the main character, Brenna. That's what it was. Brenna she's a really good main character. She really is. She's probably one of my favorites. I love her, and that's basically why I would put The Risk over The Chase. But both 2 really good books. These 2, The Chase and The Risk, give me a reason to want to read the next 2 books of the series, which I think are The Play and The Dare? I could be wrong. Yeah, good book this year, 4-star, really good. And then the last book I read in February was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I think I gave this one a 3-star, or 3.5. It was good, but I think I expected more from it. It wasn't boring, obviously. You know, it's a enemies to lovers, fake dating trope, I guess. I think I just had more in mind for the book than I got from the book, and that's why. I forgot I had this on my shelf the whole time. My friends got me both of these for Christmas, and I completely forgot this was on my shelf, and I could have been holding it when I was talking about the book. These books are really good. I really do love them. I think I like them more than the Off-Campus series, to be honest. I don't know, but these really, really good books. You guys should read them. They're amazing. Okay, so next we have the books I read in March, and I read 5 books in March, and I'm proud to say I have every single one of them on my bookshelf. So these are all of the books I read in March, and I think I rated every single one of these a 5-star. March was such a good reading month, it's not even funny. Like every single book I read this month, they were so good. It was like back to back to back to back to back 5 stars. The 12th book I read this year was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This book is so good. I can't even. I think my life did a 180 when I read this book. Like, I was this way, then I was that way. This book changed my life so much. I don't know, the way Taylor Jenkins Reid writes, I can't. I can't even process my words. She's leaving me speechless, and I'm always talking, which is weird. It is just one of the best books I have read in my entire life. I'm thinking that I'm going to read this book every year because it is literally that good. I loved it so much. Oh my god. I could talk about this book for hours. I literally could. I love it so, so much. Probably the best book I've read this year, if I'm being honest. So the 2nd book I read in March, which was the 13th book overall, is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I think this is probably my most favorite romance I've ever read. I read it because of Sarah Caroley, one of my favorite booktubers ever. I literally love her. I read it. My life was also changed just how 7 Husbands changed it. These 2 are probably like the best book I read this year. They really were. The plot twist is also, it's not, I wouldn't say it's shocking, but it's more like really, 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 really sad. So yeah. Book 13 this year, loved it so much. Go read it. Now we have books 14, 15, 16, and these are books 2 through 4 of the Shadow Me series. So the 2nd book is Unravel Me. Probably gave it a 4.5, basically a 5, meaning I love this book so much. 2nd book of the Shadow Me series, it was amazing. 3rd book of the Shadow Me series, it was so good. It was so good. I think this one probably had the most drama, I guess I would say. That's why it was so interesting. I think I read this one in a matter of days. I started this one on March 29th, finished it March 31st. So maybe this is probably my favorite one because I read it quicker, and also it has more pages than this one. So yeah, maybe this one was my favorite. But like I said, books 3, 4, and 5, literally the best books in the Shadow Me series. These two, I think, have my heart of the series. Matter of fact, might as well get into the books I read in April, being the last 2 books of the Shadow Me series. These 3, the best books of the series. Books 3, 4, and 5, the best books of the series. I'm telling you. I think I gave all the Shadow Me books a 5-star except for the first one and the last one. These books are really good. They really are. Finished this one 2 days. Really a day. Finished this one in like 2 days. Finished this one in like 4 days. They're all so good. I know a lot of people don't really like fantasy books, but if you were to read a fantasy series, I would recommend the Shadow Me series because their books are literally the best. Okay, and then this was the last book of the Shadow Me series. I gave this one a 4-star. The series also had a really good ending. Like, the ending, perfect. I wasn't mad about anything. I was upset about the things that happened to the characters, but overall, it was good. I'm sorry. The Shadow Me series, along with these 2 books, are like the best books I read this year. Shadow Me, best series. These 2, the best books I've read. But let's continue with the books I read in April. So after we finished the Shadow Me series, I read Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. If you can't tell by all the book tabs, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I really did. I definitely gave this book a 5 stars. The feels this book will make you feel. It was a very emotional book. Yeah, really emotional about a mother who's separated from her daughter. Oh my god, this book was like, it's really good. If I put Love in Other Words and 7 Husbands in the top 2 spots this year, this book would probably take number 3. It was really good. I loved it. 5 stars. Would definitely read it again. So the 20th book I read this year was Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen M. McManus. I think this is the same author who... Yeah, this is the same author who wrote One of Us is Lying. This book was not memorable. Nah. I think I gave it a 3-star. I literally don't remember anything from this book. Yeah, I definitely forced myself to finish reading this. But yeah, 3 stars for the 20th book I read this year. And then the 21st book I read this year is my favorite book of all time, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I talk about this book literally every single day. I read it again this year, which means I think I've read it 3 times. I'm gonna keep reading it because I love it so much. Hazel Grace and Augustus Waters, probably my favorite book couple. I love them a lot. I just realized something. I didn't talk about Sweetest Oblivion. I realized I completely skipped over a book for the books I read in January. The 7th book I read in January was actually The Sweetest Oblivion, which is the first book of the main series. It's like a mafia romance, of course. Forgot about that one. Sorry. Probably should have included that in there. Yeah, that was the 7th book I read this year. My apologies. Please forgive me. I did not forget that book on purpose. So I only read 3 books in May. This is where it starts to get like 1 to 3 books a month. It wasn't the worst. June was the worst reading month, I think. But yeah, let's get into the books I've read in May. Okay, so book number 2 was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I read this once last year. I decided to read it again this year. I did. I gave it a 4-star. You know, everyone talks about this book. Yeah. So the 23rd book I read this year was Good Girl, Bad Blood. And this is the 2nd book of the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. I gave this one a 4-star. I really don't remember what happened in this book. This is definitely the worst book of the series. I didn't like it. This one was, I think, the most boring. It was good, but it wasn't as good as the other 2 books in the series. And then the last book I read in May was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. I gave this one a 5-star. I love this book so much. It was really sad. It was very emotional. Just like reminders of him. This book has really good quotes, I will say that. Colleen's writing in this book, I think, is by far better than all of her other ones. It's not my favorite book of hers, but her writing is like, it's really good. I did thoroughly enjoy this book. 5 stars to the 24th book this year, I think. Loved it, would definitely read it again. Okay, June was like the worst reading month. I read 1 book in June. and it was Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. During June, this was like the only book I could actually read, but I gave this one a 4-star. I started reading it on June 3rd and it finished it on June 9th, which was ridiculous because this book had such a good plot and such good characters. I would have expected me to read it in 3 days, but I read it in like a week. And then I read this at the beginning of June, meaning I had from June 10th to June 30th to read more than one book, but I didn't, and I apologize for that to myself. So I didn't do the June reading wrap up because there's nothing I could do in June because it was bad. But yeah, 25th book of this year. After this month, it starts going downhill. But you know, it's cool. But yeah, let's get into the books I read in July. Okay, so I will admit July was definitely better than June. I read 3 more books. Still isn't the greatest, but we did overcome our 1 book of the month, which was perfect. So the 26th book I read this month was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think this was my 2nd book of hers. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 star. I don't want to say I didn't like it because obviously I liked it or I wouldn't have rated it as high as I did, but I think I expected more from it, and it wasn't really like a plot-driven book, if that makes sense. I think I thought it was going to be more interesting than it was, and the plot twist, I guess, it wasn't all that. I'm very excited for the series to come out. Literally ready. I'm kind of just excited to hear the songs in real life. But yeah, I did really like this one. Great book, 4-star. So the next book I read in July was Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 star. I read this in a couple days. Honestly, I think like the time accumulated together was like 3 hours. This is one of the most fast-paced books I've ever read in my life. Literally. This book was really, really good, honestly. Like, if you want to get into reading, or like if you want a book to get you out of a reading slump, this is the one. This is so good. It's just like, I don't know, it just makes me think of like sunshine and rainbows and everything. Probably because it takes place in the summer. But yeah, really, it was a really good book. I would definitely read this one again. After Heartbones, I read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The 3rd book of Taylor. It was more of a character book than a plot-driven book, if that makes sense. And that's probably why I gave it a 4-star. Oh, this book also takes place in one whole day. Like literally from like, I think 7 or like 12 a.m. 7 or 12 a.m. to like 12 the next morning. It was okay. Not that memorable. Well, it was memorable, but not, do you know what I mean? It was good. It was just good. It was just a good book. And then the last book I read in July was Hopeless by Colleen Hoover. This was also just a really good book. I think I spoiled it for myself. I think I spoiled myself from TikTok. So that's why this book didn't kind of hit as much as it should have. But I think I give this one like a 3 or 4 star. 3.5, 4 star. It was still really good, but it was just a good book. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect. It was just good. So now we have our August and September reads. And both of these months were just like June, where I read 1 book in both of those months. And then one of them was a book for school. So I only read like 1 book during August and September, which was like horrible. But let me tell you what they were. So the 30th book I read this year, and the only book I read in August, was a book for school called Nickel and Dimes. I was forced to read it, so it got like a 3-star. I don't want to talk about it. This book brings trauma. And the only book I read in September was the 2nd book of the Hunger Games trilogy, which was Catching Fire. I gave this one a 4-star, I think. I had already seen the Hunger Games movies before I even read the series, so I obviously knew it was going to happen. The writing was okay. Yeah, it's whatever. So yeah, this book got like a 3.5, 4-star, I think. It was alright. Okay, I read 4 books in October, and one of them was a book for school, so I'm going to talk about that one first. So the 2nd book I read in October was Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. That one was also for school. I was forced to read it, traumatized, that's it. The 1st book I read in October was Layla by Colleen Hoover. I think I gave this one a 4-star. This one gets so much hate for literally no reason. Like, this book it's so good. I do think one of the characters was like, I wanted to shoot him in the face. But when you got towards the end, you know, it didn't make it okay, but you kind of understood why, I guess, if that makes sense. This is probably like one of the most different Colleen Hoover books ever. But yeah, Layla, 4-star. Loved it, would definitely read it again. If my vibe was a book, it would be Layla by Colleen Hoover. So book 34 of the year was As Good as Dead, which is the third book of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. This book was good. It was darker than the first two books, which is kind of what I liked about it. But I think the reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because the ending. It was kind of like, the ending wasn't like pinpoint, if you know what I mean. That's probably like my only criticism of the book. But overall, it was really good. I really did enjoy it. It was a really good book this year. And then my disappointment of the year was It Starts With Us, the second book of the It Ends With Us duology. This book should not have been made. It felt rushed and it felt boring and cringy, and I did not like it. It shouldn't have been made. She shouldn't have wrote it. It's boring and I would not read it again. I hate this book. Oh, sorry, that made me very upset. But let's get into the last books I read this year. So these are the last 4 books I read this year, and I read all these in the month of December. One of them also being a book for school, which was this one. So we're gonna start with this one. This one is Fast Food Nation. This was definitely the most interesting book I read for school this year, so I would give it a 3.5. But again, I was forced to read it and I was traumatized, so yeah. But after that, I read Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. When I tell you this book had me mad the whole time, this was like the most angry I've been like in a book ever. The characters, oh my god, worst characters ever. There are only like 2 good characters in this book. Everyone else, they were so infuriating. Me and the character are the same age. And I'm not gonna say I'm like the best daughter in the world, but at least I'm not like her. What's her name? Freaking Clara? Girl, she needs to be like punished. Morgan tried to do this like gentle parenting thing with Clara, and it wasn't working because Clara was literally straight disrespectful. Anyway, and then we have The Deal by Elle Kennedy, which is the first book of the Off-Campus series. I read this once last year, but there was a sale on Amazon and I got it for like $8 instead of $16. And I was like, it's $8, I can spare $8. So I bought it. I gave this one 5 star, literally the best book of the Off-Campus series. Hannah and Garrett are 2 of my favorite characters ever. I love them both so much. They deserve the world. And then the last book I've read this year was Twisted Love by Anna Huang. When I first started reading it, I thought I was gonna give it like a 5 star maybe. No. After like about here, it was bad. It was boring, it was bad. I didn't really enjoy it. I forced myself to finish this book like 2 days ago. I really did. I hate this book. I wouldn't read it again, and I would not recommend it to anyone else. So since this book was so bad, I don't think I'm going to read the rest of the Twisted series, which sucks because I really wanted to. But those books have like 500 pages, and I do not have time to read 500 pages. I don't. The max I want to read is like 450. This book was bad, so I don't think I want to read the other ones. Okay, so this is the book I am currently reading now. Hopefully I finished it this year by December 31st to make it book 40. Yeah, Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. 3rd book of the Hunger Games trilogy. Yeah, hopefully I finish it. I might not. I was like, might as well include it. You're reading it in 2022, so might as well. But yeah, those were the 40 books I read this year. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I cannot believe I just talked about 40 books. Hopefully this video is no longer than 20 minutes. This reading year obviously was not the best. I wanted to read around 50 or 60 books, but I had to be realistic in my standards, and which is why I lowered it to 40. I did read some really good books this year. I also read some not so good books this year, and I read some books that were not memorable at all. Bottom of the barrel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as I say in every video, because it helps a whole bunch. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you tune into my next video, and I love you all so much.